Okay, let's just extend this example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more function. It's called times 2. Basically, these functions take two integer values, right, as an input, and then multiply those two integers and then return the result. So let's say definitions and then what add, actually down is a times 2 and then a comma b, right? You have to have a colon, and then this time I'll say result is 0, and then result is equal to a multiplied by b, and then return result, right? So now in the main, the main function is going to invoke this times 2 functions, right? This times 2 function. So let's say sum 2, right? So I'll say times 2 is equal to 0. Initially it's a 0. Now times 2 is equal to times 2. Say I cannot use the same. So this variable name cannot be same as this function name, right? So I have to make it different. So it's times 2. Let's say a result maybe. So times 2 result is equal to times 2 functions times 2. This time I'm going to multiply 10 by 10, right? Then it's going to be, should return 100. So print the result of A times B is times 2 result, right? So this means times 2 functions is called, right, by main functions or invoked. You can say invoked, right? Okay. So let's just run this program. So the main is going to be starting point of your execution, right? Starting point of the executions. This main function is called, and this main function now invoke two functions, add 2, which is this, and then it's going to call times 2, which is this one. So let's just run. Okay, so 6, and then result is 100, right? 10 times 10 is 100. And basically, this time I can make a little modification. This time I give you, I just basically pass the value, right? 2 or 4 or 10 and 10. But this time I can use the variable. Let's say the first is, let's say, 10, right? And then second is equal to, let's say, a 5, right? So instead of giving the actual value, I can use a variable. So the first and second. So first, second, right? So 10. So the first one should returns 15 because 10 plus 5 is 15. And then the second result, right, should returns what, 50, right? Because 10 multiplied by 5 is 50. So let's just run this program. Right, the 15 and 50. Okay. now you can add another function. So this time, let's say we try to add functions, right? Function which take three integer as input, right? And then what? Computes or the times three input values, or the variables, and then what? Return the result. So let's say you want to write these functions, and then I want to say the function name is times this time 3, right? So and so in your main function, right? Your main function is supposed to what? Your main function is supposed to invoke this times 3, right? So for example, let's say you have another variable called times 2. Actually this time is a 3, right? Result. And then here you have to say what? Invoke times 3 function, right? Here. So let's say what? Times 3 result, right? Is equal to what? Let's say your function name is times 3, right? So you have to say times and 3, and then you have to, because this function need what? How many variables? This function needs 3 variables, right? So let's just pass these 3 values. So let's just third make another value. Let's say 1. So first, second, and then third value. Okay, and then print the result of A times B times C is times 3 result, right? Okay, so this is okay. So your main function is going to invoke what? This times 3 functions. Okay, and then this function returns the result, and then this times 3 result variable is contain the result, right? The value from these functions. Okay, I'm going to comment this because when if I just run this at this point, obviously the Python will give me an error, because let's just run this, because I have not yet implemented times 3 functions, right? I have not yet. So obviously it's going to give me an error. So let's just run this. And then what they says is, see, times 3, they say is not defined, right? Because I have not yet implemented this times 3 functions. So your task is to implement, right? Task is to implement this. The task is to implement this times 3 functions, so that your program, right, runs without any error or error message. Okay, so that's your task. So please complete as a the quiz, as a quiz problem. Please complete this complete times 3 functions. as you can see, the times 3 function is going to take 3 variable, right, as an input. So let's say a, comma, b, comma, c. Okay, so please complete times 3 functions here. Okay, so that's your quiz problem.